Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Care. I'm Ellen Fischer, and we're here today with Britt Bair to view her new paintings in fresh perspective. That's the title of the show. And they are new paintings. Her work will be up through the end of this month, so come in and see it in person if you can. And hello, Britt. We're meeting for the first time today.
Yes.
How long have you been in Vero Beach?
We have actually been here for 4 years.
Okay, that's you're a youngster here.
Yeah, I'm a youngster.
Yes.
Started out coming just like a few times during the first year, and then more and more as the years went on, and now I'm a resident.
You're a full-time resident?
I am not a full-time resident. I am I have a Florida driver's license.
Well,
so that counts for something.
That counts for a lot down here. Yeah, if you can drive, you can do anything down here.
Exactly.
Where's your other home?
In Connecticut, in Rowayton, Connecticut.
Rowing. Okay.
Rowayton.
Yes. Like row your boat.
Like the Indians, yeah. Rowayton.
Oh, Rowayton.
Yes.
Okay. And you were an artist up there as well.
I am. That's kind of where it all started. So.
Yes, because you grew up in Connecticut as well.
I did. I grew up in New Canaan, Connecticut.
Yes.
Went to high school there, and then ended up back.
And you're an artist from childhood, from kindergarten, I've heard.
That's the greatest story right there. Who would have thought? Yes, ever since kindergarten, I have been enamored with paint and any kind of art related. Mm-hmm.
And you probably won a lot of those scholastic art shows, won ribbons and things as you traveled to.
I did a little, yes.
High school, yeah.
In high school, I did win a poster contest once, and but I just knew I loved it, so I continued and majored in it in college, and just took a whole bunch of different classes.
So you majored in fine art or graphic design?
Fine art.
Great.
Fine art. Didn't really know if I wanted to be a graphic designer yet, so I did a lot of printmaking, a lot of studio artwork, and then just happened to do an internship for a graphic designer.
And the rest was history for a while anyway.
Yeah.
Because you thought, well, this will pay the bills. And
that's exactly what I was thinking.
You were very practical. You were a very practical young woman at the time.
I know it takes a while to establish yourself as a fine artist, to actually make money at it. So I couldn't afford to do that.
If ever.
That's true.
So when did you get back into painting and drawing and things like that?
Well, I had kids with my husband, and they were probably in middle school when I started again. So I got an easel and some paints from my husband for my 37th birthday, and that was it. I started again, and really it took a while to get back into it. I hadn't done it for so long.
I suppose you had to retrain yourself a little. What did you get into when you started?
Well, again? I started out doing a watercolor class, because that's kind of how I started in college. And I always loved watercolor. It's very difficult, but I just love the lights and darks, and going from light to dark instead of the opposite, which you do in oil and acrylic.
Yes.
But I just started taking classes anywhere I could, and with as many different instructors as possible. And that's kind of how it got me motivated.
When did you think your own wings started to grow?
Oh boy. I would say when I got my first studio in Stamford, Connecticut at Loft Artists Association, I finally had a place to just do my art.
Yes, you're sitting in the studio and you say, okay, I must be a professional now.
Yes,
Here I am in this space.
Exactly.
Surrounded by other artists. They have studios. I was in a situation like that once in a small town, and it's a lot of fun because you bounce off of each other.
Exactly. Doors are open, people coming in and out, checking out what you're doing. You get to do the same thing.
Yeah, there's nothing like it. It's a wonderful thing to experience. What kind of work were you doing at that time?
Then I was still in oil painting. I was doing a lot of landscapes, seascapes, a lot of representational work back then. Trying to play a little bit with manipulation on the canvas, color combinations, mixing colors, all those things that I learned in school, but I hadn't really gotten into.
Practice.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct. Well, I'm trying to get you to the part about the cows.
That didn't happen actually until my daughter went to college.
Oh, really?
So she went to school in Ohio, and she was an athlete, and we used to fly out there to see her games. And usually we had to drive to Indiana, Kentucky, wherever we were, through farmland, and a lot of different times of the day, normally early in the morning or late in the afternoon. The lighting was amazing. And there are these cows. I said, pull over. I have to take pictures of these cows. And when we pulled over, they all came. They were interested. They wanted to see what was going on.
They're like that.
Yeah.
They're like that.
And that was it. I took a couple photos home with me in a class. I started painting them. Nobody really had done that in my area anyway. And it just went on from there.
For about 15 years?
Yeah, a long time.
What did you find about cows that you could continue for 15 years?
Oh gosh, it started from doing these small little studies to huge paintings of their faces. Just manipulating the paint, doing large paint strokes, just the colors, changing up the colors a lot, not brown or black or exactly. It was a lot of blues and a lot of purples and
sort of glowing colors.
Exactly. So it definitely transformed over the years, for sure.
You know, I think in your recent work, which you've only been doing abstraction for how many years now?
It's only 3 years.
3 years. But I can see a lot of what you were doing in your cows, because I did look them up on the internet, on your website, and also just checking around to see some of these cows. How many cows do you think you painted in all?
Oh, over 100.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and that's good practice, I think, for what you're doing now, because you're using the same colors you used with the cows. And yet these things are not representational, but in a way one thinks maybe they could see something in them, as I could.
Absolutely.
And I think what we want to talk about at the very first is In the Neighborhood, which is the largest canvas here at 62 by 52 inches. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Well, first of all, the size is way different from what I'm used to painting when I did representational. I never did anything that large.
Oh, okay.
So now I would buy rolls of canvas, first of all, and cut off big, huge pieces to put up on my wall. And when I started this one, it was as free as I could possibly be, because the larger you get, the freer you are. It just started out with just lots of lines and mark making and blurring colors and lines together and adding paint and taking off paint and drawing things in there. I mean, there's so many layers going on in there. So
this one has a very misty center, and I'll tell you, when I looked at these online, and I came to your reception and I saw them in person, and then I saw them in line, and the small size of them gave me an entirely different perspective. And in that one, I actually could see an art studio crowded with easels and students. They're all going toward that misty center, as though the model on the stand has somehow disappeared and everyone else is still there.
It's so funny.
But I guess it gives me the idea of an environment and an architectural environment.
Yeah, well,
was there anything going on like that in your mind?
Absolutely. I went through a phase where I was doing a lot of line work, a lot of geometric shapes, and this one actually, it's intuitive. Most of my work is intuitive. So when I step back from it and I look at it, and then I'm trying to find a name for it, I see the structure and I see all the architecture and I see kind of a road or something. And that's where In the Neighborhood came from.
It is a grouping, it is a neighborhood, and I do see structures. One that I think is similar to it hangs sort of on the same wall across from a door, and that one's called Feeling Loopy, which is something I can relate to most days. And I think I told you when we were just talking about this that I like the surprising colors. You can't expect this palette that you used.
Right.
The colors.
It's a newer palette. It's probably a year from In the Neighborhood. So first of all, you notice it's loopy, it's loose, it's very circular in motion, completely different from the structure that I had in the Neighborhood.
Yes.
So when I was starting with these colors, It just so happened the darkest color, the wine color, as you called it
Yes.
before, was something intentional for me. I wanted to put that in there so that when I put the loops over it, they would really pop and show up. I saw an artist once who had a painting that I really admired. And of course, I can't think of her name right now, but she did something similar to that. And I always draw inspiration from other artists. So I wanted to try it.
In art school, we call that stealing.
You have to steal like an artist.
Yes, exactly.
There's a book called that. But then as soon as I started getting into the shapes and everything, then the colors started coming to me. And I love to combine kind of not obvious colors together. And I think that's what you're trying to say.
I think that's a strong point in your work, because it's something that really attracts me. Because we were talking about colors and fashions and how colors become fashionable, and these are just a mishmash of different eras and things that I relate to as being in colors, you know, in my lifetime, but they're all together sort of as a big stew.
Yeah.
And speaking of stew, I don't think Riesling goes very well with stew. Probably the red wine you used in that one.
Thinking
you
wine.
have a painting called Riesling here, and it's one of your very earliest ones in your series. Tell us about that.
So Riesling I did at an art retreat up in the Atlantic Center for the Arts in New Smyrna, Florida. And this was, I was trying something new on this one. I started out with some joint compound. And I put that down on the canvas first. I wanted texture.
Yes.
And because I'm only here for a week at this retreat, I knew that I couldn't get thick paint. It wouldn't dry fast enough. So I got this joint compound, and then I started layering the paints on top of that. So I got a lot of texture. I got a lot of color mixing, and again, a lot of shapes were in this one.
Yes, and you started some loops in there as well. In fact, you have a little bit in the kitchen sink, and then you started pulling out different elements for the different paintings that you've done since, I think.
I think it's true.
And that's what a good retreat should do. They should make you pull everything out inside, throw it on a canvas, and then see what sticks in a couple of months later.
You always want to try something new.
Oh,
that's what you're there for.
Well, that's a good saying from a woman who painted cows for 15 years.
I know.
I think that's wonderful.
On a different track.
It really is. One of them here does have a little bit of a reference to landscape here, and it's Cloudy Day #1.
Yes.
And I should say that these square paintings we've been talking about are all 40 by 40 inch square paintings, which seems to be sort of a sweet size for you.
Well, you're not going to believe why. It's because they're the only size that fit in the back of my car.
No, actually, I've heard this before about artists and the size pictures they like. I really have.
I swear to God, I bought this car thinking I could fit a 48 by 48 in it, and I couldn't, so...
You're still the practical woman you were when you started out.
Exactly.
So tell us about Riesling. Were you drinking Riesling when you did this, or...?
Absolutely not. I think it came from the color, and in it there was a little bit of texture. It looked almost like bubbles.
Yes.
So I got a little bit of that feel. It's almost like champagne or Prosecco, or.
Yes.
But then I was thinking it's sweeter. It goes with dessert.
Exactly.
It's Riesling. It has to be.
Yes, white grapes you have in there, white color grapes.
Exactly.
Yes. I know what Riesling is. My father used to love Riesling wine because it was a sort of a celebratory drink in a way. Like you say, it goes with dessert. It's sweet. It's fun. And that seems to be what you were going after in this. Let's try these plastering tools and this texturing material, and then go over it and let's see what happens.
Exactly.
So you can't get too serious about that, or you'll choke up.
That's right.
Yes, I understand that.
Absolutely right.
One that I like I say, we were looking at Cloudy Day, and there is something of a figural foreground and background in that, with those sort of greenish aqua figures or shapes in front of an expanse of sky.
Right.
Did that
not intentional?
No.
This is not how I paint. I wanted kind of a ethereal feel, along with a structured little sections,
Mm-hmm.
if you will, around to give more of a contrast in shapes and feeling. And I try to do that in my paintings. I try to have like a soft, quiet area, and then something that's very like intentional, like just lots of structure,
Yeah.
something that you really want your eye is drawn to, point of interest.
Uh-huh.
So I start out by doing this structural part, and then I start obliterating with these cloudy formations.
I see, and you just leave some things behind.
Exactly. And when that happens, that's when I found the name Cloudy Day.
Cloudy Day 1, and so there's also Cloudy Day 2
I
here.
worked at on both of them at the same time, right next to each other. So I'm just kind of doing one, then the next, then back and forth, back and forth. And
yes, and why think up two different titles? After all, you're doing something that you're thinking of right then, and it's the same thing, only different.
Exactly, and it can be hung as a diptych, which is nice. You have
it
two
is.
of them
and
together.
You have them on either side of a door here,
right.
which our audience may be able to see in back of us. One that I think, the more I look at it, is more of a personal favorite of mine, is the one that is called Here I Am.
Yes.
Now, is there a bird in there?
There could be, if you want it to be. No, Here I Am was actually named by a friend of mine. I had a show locally here at a furniture store, and I was looking for a theme for the show. And it was my first time showing in Florida, in Vero Beach. So, hence the name. This was my favorite painting of the series that I showed. And we thought, let them all see who I am. This is who I am. Here I am.
It has a lot of very bright cadmium oranges and reds, and some really ice cold sort of aqua, cerulean
my
blues.
two favorite colors to put together.
You play them off against a lot of grays and light purpley blues and things. So it really is a statement. It really does position you somewhere.
It definitely tells you who I am. That's for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started seeing figures in that too. Again, when I saw it from afar, which the internet does a good job of making you see things from afar. When you're in front of them, you're so engaged in the colors and things happening in them. Everything, there's a lot of activity in them, and that's what takes you over.
That's the intention.
Through the cold medium of the internet,
yeah,
you start to see things. You know, your mind goes to work, and maybe that's a good thing, or maybe it's not.
Well, that's why it's so important to see art in person. It really is. At the museum, at anywhere you go, you hear about famous artists all the time. Until you see the art in person, you have no idea how impactful it is.
Exactly, because if you just see it in a photograph or on a screen, it's a very coolly intellectual exercise. And in person, it's a physical object like you are, and you have to relate to it.
It's emotional.
In front of it, and emotional as well. Now, one of the smaller ones here is only 22 by 22 inches. You like the square. A lot of abstract artists like the square. It's called Rain on the Plain.
Right.
Tell us about that one.
So this was part of a series that I did also at the retreat, my latest jaunt there. I laid out 8 pieces of paper. They were 18 by 24 on a huge wall. Got out all of my collage papers and just went from one to the next, to the next, to the next in a row, putting collage. Didn't think color, didn't think form, nothing. I just let it go. And then after that dried, I did the same thing with paint and ink and drawings and everything else that you see on these. It's all from just going boom, 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 just really releasing. So it wasn't until I brought them home and, like you said, brought a viewfinder of a square shape, looked at these pieces, each one, and I found a piece of that painting that worked on its own.
And then you edited out
the rest.
That didn't matter.
No, exactly. And then framed them all.
Oh, all of them turned out.
Yeah, well, not all of them. No, three.
Of them.
Three turned out
okay.
of 8.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, because sometimes in this type of work, and really in any type of work, even representation, some of them you just, they're just never going to work. You can flail away at them. Sometimes,
Oh, sure.
You have to let them go very gently.
Sometimes it takes just looking at it.
Dustbin.
Yes, in a little viewfinder to find what you're looking for.
Is that the first one we've talked about here that has the collage?
Collage, yes.
It also has some writing in it as well, I see, yes. And also some words from one of the collage elements torn from a magazine.
Yes.
What is it about the writing in your works? Because I think when people come in to see these, they'll see something they don't see on the internet. They'll see your handwritten cursive in some of the pictures, or what looks like cursive.
Exactly. So sometimes I do write actual words in my paintings. But most of the time I use asemic writing, which is really just doodling like you are trying to write something, but it doesn't make any sense. It's more for the look of it and the feel of it, and I can obliterate some of it and have some of it show through. But the viewer might see a word, and that's what they're drawn to.
I'm always looking for the title in those things.
Yeah.
I think, well, maybe the title is written in there, but
it's not.
It doesn't look like that. And then you puzzle. That's always, I think, a pitfall for me when I see writing, because I do a lot of writing. I don't know what it says.
What it says, exactly.
And that's my fault. You sort of tricked me into getting off track a little bit.
But that might be something you're interested in too. You might see like a couple letters like a G or an R or something, and you might think, oh, maybe, that reminds you of somebody or somebody's initials, or, it might be one of your favorite letters. It doesn't matter. I don't pick the letter. I pick the color that it's coming on, and if it works with what I'm trying to make.
Okay, so it's all a visual thing.
It's
There's not a whole lot
thing.
of feeling. Nothing, none of this busy workshop up here going on.
Only sometimes when I do actually write words, I am feeling something or through through the painting. Yeah.
Well, where do you go next? You've done representational art, now you're abstract, and we do have a lot of cows in Florida.
I feel like I haven't even touched the surface of abstract. I have so much that I want to do, so much to do. So many colors to try, combinations, sizes, paper, not paper. Sky's the limit really with abstract.
Well, I'm looking forward to what your next show will hold for us.
Good.
And I thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you so much, Ellen. This was fun.
Thank you. And I hope you'll come in and see the show. Again, it's up until the end of the month. I'm Ellen Fischer. This is Britt Bair. And thanks for seeing us here at the Center for Spiritual Care.